Thank you. First off, thanks Danelle and the team for this amazing event at this incredible venue. Just real quickly about myself, the founder and former CEO, current board director at Borrow Bank in the U.S. I'm on the board of MoneyGram with Danelle, and recently have founded Civitas ID, and I'm the board chair of the 501c3. I'd ask if everybody could kind of shift their mindset a little bit, and we're going to talk about tech for good and how technology can help solve one of the most profound issues facing humanity today. And so to start us off, I'm going to go back 48 hours ago. I was in the office of the Jesuit Refugee Council in Bogota, listening to the stories of people who had to pick up and leave their towns because of violence from armed militia groups. And they set off on a very perilous, dangerous journey to start to rebuild their lives with the hope that they could find better safety, security, opportunity for themselves and for their families. And many of them took this journey by foot. And as they crossed over the border into Colombia, many of them were exhausted, hungry, fearful, and uncertain what laid ahead. The local communities and the NGOs, they do their best to try to resettle these new arrivals, but there's so much uncertainty, legal uncertainty. There's technical, operational, xenophobia, and these populations are left in a real state of limbo. And as after they arrive, they also have a profound sense of invisibility because they're not recognized. And so this is what Civitas ID is setting out to try to fix. So I'm going to quickly advance us to talk about the invisibility crisis and how identity is going to become a new frontier for displaced millions. This story that I just told you is not an isolated few people. If you go back 25 years, there's 35 million displaced people on the planet. Today, there's 123 million. Okay, that's 1 in 70 people on the planet. And if you fast forward at the way things are going in the next 25 years, it's going to be 1 in 8. 1.2 billion people on the planet are going to experience what I just talked about. And it's not just war and conflict. It's also the increase in frequency and severity of climate events that does not distinguish between rich and poor countries. When a village floods or a fire burns a town down to the ground, people have to pick up and leave, often with almost nothing but the clothes on their back. And when you arrive in a host community, you have to prove you are who you say you are. And if you don't have the documentation, if you don't have identity credentials, particularly if you have to cross borders where there might be different legal rules and policies, you have no access to healthcare, housing, banking, education. You have no rights. So you're highly vulnerable in terms of being persecuted or human trafficking. There's a number of horrible things that happen to people when they're put in this vulnerable situation, and you really have no legal protections. And the cost of displacement is massive. So not just the cost in the host countries and setting up humanitarian operations, trying to integrate, in some cases, millions of people into new communities. You also have the origin countries that are losing workers. They're seeing a brain drain. They're losing access to people, essential workers that are supporting hospitals and healthcare and education. And all of this sort of compounds itself. So, okay, I'm going to stop admiring the problem here because it's deep and it's disturbing, and it affects all of our lives. And let's start to turn towards the actual enormous opportunity if you could unlock the human potential of all of these people. So the 123 million people today that are operating outside the formal systems, if you could integrate them into economies and get them just get 40% of them up to the average GDP per capita in the world today, and we know refugee populations actually far outperform that number. That is $700 billion of global growth potential that is sitting in, it's trapped in this situation. And again, the biggest barrier that so many of these people face is identity. Being able to access the formal financial system, being able to get loans to start businesses or to upgrade your housing, being able to access jobs and employment where they want to know not just who you are, but what have you done in the past? What skills do you have? Access to healthcare, education, and even basic things like a SIM card so you can have a mobile phone and start to participate with a mobile wallet. But the tracks are being laid around the world to start to solve this. So there are digital public infrastructure initiatives that are happening all over the world. Most notably, everybody probably is familiar with the India Stack and the ability to take 1.2 billion people into the formal systems through the integration of Aadhaar, UPI, and DEPA, which is the identity system, the payment systems, as well as the data interoperability systems. Here in Brazil, between SIN and PIX, it's having a massive impact in terms of its ability to help bring people into the formal economy, as well as the Ukraine Dia app, which is one of the most impressive digital identity wallets that I've seen anywhere in the world. And it was built under pressure. But all of these solutions that you see today, I also have FIDA up here, which is an Ethiopian example, and they're one of the few that have actually designed their solution not just for citizens, but also to think about how to include refugees. But many of these systems are all national systems that are built around citizens. And they don't take into consideration the context and some of the special requirements for displaced populations, migrants, refugees. And this is what Civitas ID is looking to fix. So we're looking to build a human-centered identity system that is designed by and for displaced persons. So getting very deep into the specific use cases that are going to be relevant to these populations and bridging the gap between dependency on humanitarian aid, which is under massive assault right now, into full economic participation to bring people into the formal economies, and then digitizing bureaucracies. So I'll give you one example. We're working with the Kenyan government right now to look at something that there's long-term displacement and encampment that's happening in Kenya. So you have camps that have been around for 35 years now. So you actually have intergenerational displacement. And these are people that are trapped. They don't have mobility. They can't participate in the formal society because they need certain identity requirements. And one of the precursors is to get issued a Kenyan Refugee Authority PIN that when you get issued that, you can start to apply for a job. You can get a SIM card. You can open up a Safaricom M-Pesa wallet. But to even get an appointment takes 3 years. Just to get an appointment. And if you show up and you don't have all your documents, you get pushed back to the end of the queue. So something that can take 3 to 6 years just to get this one piece of information that helps start to preserve your dignity and integrate you into society. We're talking to them about how to turn that into 3 to 6 seconds by capturing the information in a mobile wallet, sending it through a DPI interface into their registry, and being able to bounce back that PIN instantaneously. This is like magic to these people. And then through the wallet, we can then transfer that credential onto banks, SIM card providers, lenders, employers. So Civitas is intended to be a portable identity system, housing credentials that are localized to the local context. And it's also going to be using a trust scoring method to look at all the credentials that we're able to gather, whether it's through biodata, through physical documents, through electronic documents, to be able to pass information on to the relative public and private service providers to unlock access. And obviously data security, how we manage data, and making sure that we rigorously pursue the do not harm principles are fundamental to what we're building, because these are highly vulnerable populations and they've left their countries many times because of persecution, fear of surveillance. And so this is paramount to all of our design decisions. And we're working with partners across the ecosystem. Stellar has been amazing. They've been working with us from day one to imagine what the system might look like, how we think about how the end user can manage their verified credentials, how they can also access their event history on their wallet, being able to provide zero knowledge proofs, also potentially to be able to provide smart contract functionality for employment jobs or for microfinance. And so we're looking at different ways to apply the technological innovation of the chain into something that is, a profoundly important humanitarian problem for society. And again, as I mentioned, this is a multi-stakeholder collaboration. We're working very closely with the UNDP, UNHCR, IOM. We're working with the major refugee organizations, technology companies like Stellar. IDEMIA has also been extremely helpful, coming to the table, lending their technology and their support. And then a whole host of other institutions, including financial institutions and coalitions of banks that are focusing on financial inclusion in the markets that we're working in. And so someone might say, well, why us? I mean, who are you people? Why are you going to solve this? Many people have tried this. There have been many digital identity initiatives in the past. But I think what we bring to the table is a track record and history of building businesses and building new programs and policies. Two of our board members are actually former refugees themselves. We come from deep backgrounds in financial services and design and technology and data in we have diplomats in our advisory council, people who understand how to deal with complex legal and regulatory issues. And so it's a group of folks that are highly motivated to make a difference. And so the last question is, why now? Well, as I started this conversation, we've got 123 million people today. That number is going to become 1.2 billion in the next 25 years if we don't find a way to help people move with dignity and to participate in the economies where they end up. And so with that, I'm going to close, but I can take some questions if we have time. I don't know if we're over time. Hope I didn't bring the mood down. Let me see if there's any questions. Of course, that means I have to be able to read them. No, I don't see. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And if anybody has anything, I'm happy to take them after. Right. Right.